I don't know how others feel, but when I think back to the place where I was born, to our old home in Humulest, to the chimney post where my mother tied a string with little tassels at the end, enough to drive the cats wild with play, to the soot-darkened hearth ledge I held onto when I first began to toddle, to the big oven where I used to hide when we boys played hide and seek, and to all the other games and little joys filled with the charm of childhood, my heart still leaps with joy. And Lord, how beautiful everything was then, for my parents, my brothers, and my sisters were all healthy. Our home was full and lively. The neighbors' children were always playing with us, and everything went my way, without a shadow of worry, as if the whole world belonged to me. And I was as cheerful as a clear summer day, restless and playful, like the wind running wild. My mother, famous in the village for her little wonders, would sometimes smile at me when the sun peeked out after a long rain and say, "Go outside, fair-haired child, laugh at the sun. Maybe the weather will clear." And the weather truly brightened after my laughter. The sun, you see, knew whom it was dealing with, for I was my mother's child, and she herself knew how to work many small and mighty marvels. She could chase away the dark clouds above our village and turn hail aside simply by driving an axe into the earth outside the door. She could thicken water using nothing more than 2 cow hooves, leaving people speechless with wonder. When I bumped my head or hand or foot, she would tap the ground or the wall or the piece of wood I had struck, saying, "There, there," and the pain would vanish at once. And when the glowing ember in the stove roared, which they say foretells wind and storm, or when a spark whistled, meaning someone was speaking ill of you, she would scold it right there in the fire and turn it with the tongs until the enemy quieted down. And more than that, whenever she feared I might be struck by the evil eye, she quickly prepared, with a wrapped finger, a bit of clay from the dust gathered on a shoe sole, or, faster still, she took soot from the stove's mouth, saying, "Just as no one can bewitch the stove's mouth or the horse's hoofprint, may no one harm this child." Then she'd draw a small protective mark on my forehead so her treasure would not be lost, and many other wonders she knew. That was my mother in the days of my childhood, full of marvels, as far back as I remember. And I remember well, for her arms cradled me when I nursed at her sweet breast, and I rested in her lap, gurgling and gazing lovingly into her eyes. From her I took blood of her blood and flesh of her flesh, and from her I learned to speak. Wisdom comes from God when the time arrives for a person to understand what is good and what is bad. But time passed softly, and I grew without noticing, and new thoughts flew through my mind, new joys awakened in my heart, and instead of wisdom, I became ever more restless, my longing growing without end. For the thoughts of a person are quick and deceptive, and on their wings longing carries you on, giving you no peace until you enter the grave. But alas for the person who sinks too deep into his thoughts. Just like water pulling you quietly into deep places, you fall in an instant from the greatest cheerfulness into bitter sadness. So let us speak instead about childhood, for childhood alone is joyful and innocent. And, to tell the truth, that is how things really are. What does a child care when mother and father worry about the hardships of life, about what tomorrow may bring, or about all the other thoughts that trouble grown-ups? The child, still rocking on his wooden stick, imagines he is riding the strongest of horses, galloping with all his might, whipping and steering it with fierce determination, shouting at it from the top of his lungs until your ears ring. And if he falls, he believes the horse has thrown him, and he takes out all his anger on the stick with all the force of the wind. That is how I was in those blessed years, and I believe all children have been the same since the world began, no matter what anyone says. When my mother was exhausted and lay down for a short rest during the day, that was the very moment we boys would shake the whole house to the skies. And when father came home at night from the forest of Dumeshniku, frozen with cold and covered in frost, we would scare him by jumping on his back in the dark, and he, tired as he was, would catch us one by one, just like in Blind Man's Buff, lift us up to the rafters, saying, "Such a big boy," and kiss us again and again. And after the little lamp was lit and father sat down to eat, we would drag the cats out from the wall niches and cupboards, fussing and tumbling them about before him until dust flew everywhere, and the poor creatures could not escape our hands until they scratched us and fought us like the little devils we were. "You still look at them, husband," mother would say, "and you even give them encouragement. Is that right? Ha ha, ha! Serves you right, you wicked little rascals. No creature can settle near this house because of you. If I hadn't chased you out today, you'd run circles around the cats and treat them like dogs on a stick. And you're bold enough to keep tempting fate with all this mischief. Just wait. I'll take the switch from the cord and give you such stripes that the patches will fly. Oh, now, let them be, wife. Let them be. They're happy that I'm home," father would say, rocking us. "What do they have to worry about? We've got wood in the shed, bacon and flour in the attic as much as we need, cheese in the barrel, and plenty of cabbage in the brine. Thank the Lord. All that matters is that they're healthy, eating and playing now, while they're still little. Their wildness will pass when they grow up, and worries come knocking. Don't fear, they won't escape that. And don't you know the saying, if it's a child, let him play, if it's a horse, let it pull, and if it's a priest, let him read." "That's easy for you to say," mother would reply, "since you're not the one sitting with them all day in the house, having your hair turned white by their tricks. Heaven forgive me. If only summer would come so they could play outside more, for I'm as tired of them as of wild apples. Every bit of mischief that pops into their heads, they do it. When the church bell begins to ring, your precious Zahe runs outside and bangs on the weaving frame until the walls shake and the windows rattle. And Ion, that rascal, with the sheep bell, the tongs, and the poker, makes such clatter and racket that your ears burst. Then they throw a cloth over their shoulders, put paper helmets on their heads, and sing Alleluia and Lord have mercy. The priest is catching fish until they drive you out of the house. And this happens every day, 2 or 3 times, and sometimes you feel you'd beat them if you ever tried to keep up with them. "Well then, woman," father would say, "you're the one famous for your church-going. The whole village knows it. At least the boys have built you a church right here in the house, just the way you like it, though the church practically enters the house from how close it is. Now then, boys, get ready to chant vigils and prayers all night long, if you wish. Maybe your mother will feed you only sweet buns with honey from the 40 saints, and koliva with walnut kernels every day, if that's what pleases you." "Oh, really now? Have you lost your wits, man?" my mother would say. "I wondered why they were so quiet and well-behaved, the little ones. It's because you spoil them and egg them on. Just look at them, wide awake, staring straight into our eyes, as if they're planning to paint our faces. Try waking them for chores, then you'll see how they hesitate, pout, and fuss," she said. "Come on, off to bed, boys. The night is passing. Of course you're carefree, with food right under your noses." And after we all lay down to sleep, we boys, being boys, started wrestling and fooling around, unable to fall asleep for all our mischief, until poor mother had no choice but to twist our hair a little and give us a few smacks on the back. And when father grew tired of the racket, he'd call out to her, "Ah, leave them, woman. Enough of that herd of colts. They're not old women to tiptoe around." But mother would give us a few more whacks, even sharper ones. "Here, take some for my trouble, you little devils. Not even at night can I have a moment's rest from your nonsense. Only then could poor mother find a bit of peace from all our trouble. God forgive her hardships. And do you think it ended there? Not at all. At dawn the next day, we'd start all over again, and mother would grab the switch hanging from the beam and lay it on us once more. But did that ever frighten us? Not in the least. As the saying goes, a tough hide, beat it or leave it. It's all the same. And oh, the things that came into our heads, and all the foolishness we did. I remember them as if they were happening right now. Who can keep track of everything if your mind still serves you well, dear Uncle Ion? At Christmas, when Father slaughtered the pig, singed it, scalded it, and wrapped it quickly in straw to steam so it could be shaved clean, I would climb on top of the straw-covered pig and make merry as if it were worth 1,000 coins, knowing that I would be given the pig's tail to roast and the bladder to fill with grain, blow up, dry, and shake like a rattle. And oh, the torment for mother's ears until she finally burst it over my head. And I must not forget. Once, on St. Basil's Day, a few of us boys from the village teamed up to go caroling with the ceremonial plough, for by then I was already bigger, unfortunately for everyone else. And on the eve of St. Basil, I pestered Father all day long to make me a bull roarer, or at least a whip. "Oh, I'll give you a whip, all right," Father said after a while. "Haven't you got enough to eat in this house? Do you want those rascals to trample you into the snow? I'll take your boots off this instant." Seeing I had stirred up a hornet's nest, I slipped away from home with only the pig's bladder in hand, so Father wouldn't grab my boots and shame me in front of the boys. And somehow, I don't know how, none of the boys had a bell. My sheep bell was at home, but how could I go back for it? So we gathered what we could, a broken scythe blade from here, a stick from a yoke from there, an iron poker with a ring, and of course my pig's bladder. Then, after the evening bell, we set out from house to house. We started from Father Oshlobanu's home at the very top of the village, planning to walk the whole length of it. But just then, the priest was chopping wood outside. When he saw us gather at his window, ready to begin our carol, he rushed at us with a flurry of blows and shouted, "The chickens have barely gone to roost, and you've already started? Wait a moment, you scoundrels. I'll teach you." We fled at once, and he, swoosh, threw a stick after us, for Father Oshlobanu was a sharp and ill-tempered man. Frightened as we were, we ran halfway down the village without even managing to shout the customary words ploughboys speak at houses that chase them away. Straw on the floorboards, and sponges on the walls, as many feathers on the roosters, so many children in your halls. "Ah, you devilish outsider of a priest," we muttered once we gathered together again, frozen and frightened. "That cursed brute nearly crippled us. May we see him carried on a bier to St. Dumitrius Church under the fortress, where he serves. Truly, may the cross strike him for settling in our village to make his lair here. God forbid our own priests were like that, for then you'd never taste a crumb from the church ever again." And while we complained and scolded the priest, evening fell for good. "Well then, what now?" "Let's step into this yard here," said Zaharia Louis Gatlan. "We're wasting time standing in the middle of the road." So we went into Vasile Anitse's yard and took our place at the window, as custom required. But as if the devil himself enchanted us, nothing went right. The scythe wouldn't ring because it was too cold. Another boy's hands froze stiff on the wooden handle, and my cousin Ion Mogorogia, clutching the fire poker, refused to shout the chant, enough to make your heart burst with frustration. "You start it, Chiris," I said to Goyen, "and we, Zahari, will puff like the bull roarer, and the others can shout, 'Hi, hi.'" We began at once. And what do you think happened? Out rushed Vasile Anitse's wife, waving a burning fire stirrer at us, for she was just then tending the oven to bake the holiday bread. "May fire burn you, you little pests. What do you call this? Who taught you such manners? In whose face are you yelling?" she shouted, furious. We ran off at once, boys, even faster than we had fled from Father Oślabanu. "That was a fine mess," we said once we stopped at the crossroads in the middle of the village, near the church. "One or two more nights like this, and the villagers will throw us out like gypsies. Better go home." And after promising, with solemn oaths, to roam together again next year, we parted ways, chilled to the bone and starving, each heading to whichever home he belonged to. And that was our plough caroling adventure that year. But oh, the things we did when it came to skimming the milk. Whenever Mother set milk to sour, whether it was fasting or feasting time, the next day I would start licking the cream from the top of the pots, and I did this every day until the milk turned to curds. And when Mother looked to skim the cream, well, skim if you can, Smiranda. "Maybe the witches stole the milk charm, Mama," I'd say, crouching beside the pots with my tongue out, teasing her. "Oh, just let me catch that little milk thief at the cream pot," Mother would say, staring long at me. "Then you'll see. The switch from the rafter will teach him. Not all the witches in the world could save him from my hand. You can always tell which thief licked the cream. It shows right on the tongue. I have hated sneaky thieving people all my life, my dear child. And mark my words, God never helps the one who steals, whether it's things or food or anything at all." Well now, Mother strikes where she shouldn't, I thought to myself, for I wasn't so foolish that I didn't understand at least that much. And then there was old Kjorpek, the cobbler, our neighbor. What trouble I had with him, or rather, the trouble he had with me. Every chance I got, I'd go to him and nag him for leather straps to make another whip. Most times I found the old man heating boots with a pot of strong glue that softened the leather like cotton. And when he saw there was no shaking me off with words, he'd gently take me by the chin with his left hand, dip a brush into the glue with his right, and give me a good smear across the mouth, enough to make all the apprentices burst into laughter. And when he let me go, I'd run home crying, spitting to the right and left as I went. "Look, Mother, what that devil Kjorpek did to me," I would say. "Ah, as if I taught him," Mother answered, actually pleased. "I'll thank him properly when I see him. You stick like glue wherever you go and wear the soul out of a man with your shameless ways, you little nuisance." Hearing that, I would wash the glue from my mouth and keep quiet for a while, until, forgetting my grudge, I dashed right back to old Kjorpek for more leather straps. And when he saw me walk through the door, he greeted me cheerfully. He, welcome, little piglet." And again he smeared me, making the whole workshop laugh. And again I ran home, crying, spitting right and left, cursing him all the way. Poor Mother had her hands full with me because of this. "Oh, if only winter would come, to send you back to school," Mother said, "and I'll ask the teacher to give me back nothing but your skin and bones." Once, in summer, around the Feast of the Departed, I slipped out of the house at midday and went to old Uncle Vasile, Father's oldest brother, to steal some cherries. Only he, and maybe 2 others in the village, had a summer cherry tree that ripened around Pentecost. I planned carefully so I wouldn't get caught. First, I went inside the house and pretended to ask for Ion, so we could go swimming. "Ion isn't home," said Aunt Mariwara. "He went with Uncle Vasile under the fortress to fetch some sheepskin coats from the Kodreni fair. For you should know that in Humulesht, girls and boys, women and men alike, all spin wool. They make many rolls of thick cloth, blankets, and homespun coats, which are sold either as fabric or already sewn. Armenian merchants come from faraway places, Fokshani, Bacău, Roman, Târgu Frumos, and more, and buy them there, as well as at fairs everywhere. This is how most Humulesht people make a living, landless peasants that they are, through their trade on foot: cattle, horses, pigs, sheep, cheese, wool, oil, salt, and cornmeal, heavy coats, leather trousers, vests, linen shirts, woolen skirts, fine embroidered towels, and countless other goods they take to town on Mondays or to nunneries on Thursdays. "Well then, stay well, Aunt Mariwara," I said politely. "I'm sorry Cousin Ion isn't home. I would have liked to swim with him. But in my mind, good thing he's gone, and if he doesn't come back soon, even better." So, short and to the point, I kissed her hand and wished her goodbye, like a well-behaved boy, then left the house, pretending to head to the river. Instead, I slipped behind the sheds and soon found myself in her cherry tree, stuffing cherries, ripe or not, into my shirt. But just then, Aunt Mariwara appeared at the trunk, holding a switch in her hand. "Well now, you little devil, is this where you came to swim?" she shouted, her eyes bulging. "Get down, you thief, I'll teach you." But how was I to come down, when below was disaster? Seeing I wouldn't budge, she threw clods of dirt at me, 2, 3, but didn't hit me. Then she began climbing the tree, saying, "Wait, you rascal, just wait till Mariwara gets her hands on you." I quickly crept onto a lower branch and suddenly leapt down into a patch of hemp growing waist-high. Crazy Aunt Mariwara followed me, and I ran like a rabbit through the hemp, with her right behind me, all the way to the back fence. With no time to climb it, I turned back through the hemp again, running rabbit fast, and she after me, until we flattened the whole field, 10 or 12 neat rows, tall and beautiful as any combed wool, ruined completely. At last, Aunt Mariwara tripped or tangled herself in the stalks and fell. Then I spun around, made 2 good leaps, vaulted over the fence as if I hadn't even touched it, and vanished, going home and behaving very well for the rest of the day. But later in the evening, here came old Uncle Vasile, together with the village chief and the watchman, calling father to the gate. They explained what had happened and summoned him to be present when the damage to the hemp and the cherry trees was assessed. For truth be told, old Vasile was just as stingy and tight-fisted as Aunt Mariwara. As the saying goes, thunder brings them together. But no matter how much I grumbled, what did complaining help? The damage was done, and the guilty one had to pay. As the saying goes, the rich doesn't pay, the guilty does. So father paid the fine for me, and that was that. And when he came home, ashamed from the settlement, he gave me such a beating, saying, "Here, stuff yourself with cherries now. From this moment on, know you've lost all my favor, you little scoundrel. How many more damages will I have to pay because of you?" And that was the story of the cherries. Mother's words came true quickly enough. God does not help the one who steals. But what good is repentance after the deed is done? And what about my shame? How could I face Aunt Mariwara, Uncle Vasile, Cousin Ion, or even the boys and girls in the village, especially on Sundays at church, at the village dance, or at the swimming hole in Sierul Cucului, where lads and lasses longed for each other all week while working? My prank spread all over the village. You couldn't show your face out of sheer embarrassment, especially now when a few pretty girls had grown up in our village and my own heart was beginning to stir. As the saying goes, "Tell me, Ion, do you love the girls?" "I do." "And do they love you?" "They do too." But what could I do? This too would pass, leave it behind like so many other things that happened in my life, not in 1 year or 2 or all at once, but over many years, one after another, like grains in a mill. I tried to be careful, to avoid trouble, but it was as if the devil pushed me straight into it. And look how it happened. Right after the business with the cherries, along came another misadventure. One morning, Mother woke me from sleep with great difficulty, saying, "Get up, you sleepyhead, before sunrise. Do you want the Armenian cuckoo to kiss you and curse your day, so it won't go well for you?" That's how Mother scared us with a hoopoe bird that had built its nest for many years inside an old hollow linden tree on the hillside belonging to Uncle Andre, Father's youngest brother. Every summer you could hear it early at dawn. Hoo-poo-hoop, hoo-poo-hoop, echoing through the whole village. As soon as I got up, Mother sent me off with food for the hired weeders working in the fields at Valea Sica, near Topolița. I started out with the food, when suddenly I heard the hoopoe calling, "Hoop-poo-hoop, hoop-poo-hoop, hoop-poo-hoop." Should I have continued on my way? Of course not. I turned toward the linden tree, planning to catch the bird, for I was furious with it. Not just because of Mother's stories about its kiss, but because it woke me before dawn every single day. When I reached the linden tree, I put the food basket down on the ridge path, climbed quietly into the tree heavy with the sweet scent of blossoms, reached into the hollow, and luck was mine. I grabbed the hoopoe sitting on its eggs. "Quiet, my lady, I've caught you. Now you can kiss the devil himself," I said with satisfaction. But just as I was about to pull the bird out, I panicked at the sight of its round crest and feathers, for I had never seen a hoopoe before, and I let it fall back inside. Then I stood there thinking that a feathered snake could not exist, though I had heard people say snakes sometimes lived in tree hollows. So I mustered my courage and reached in again to grab the hoopoe, or whatever it was. But the poor creature had slipped deeper into the hollow in fear. I couldn't find it anywhere. It was as if it had vanished into the earth. "Well, this is foolishness," I muttered angrily, taking off my cap and stuffing it into the hollow. Then I climbed down, found a good flat stone, climbed back up, retrieved my cap, and placed the stone over the entrance, thinking the hoopoe would come out from somewhere by the time I returned from the fields. Then I climbed down again and hurried off with the food. And no matter how fast I walked, plenty of time had passed, what with wandering around and fumbling in the linden tree trying to catch the bird. The weeders, needless to say, were starving from all that waiting, and, as the saying goes, when a gypsy is hungry, he sings. The boyar strolls with his hands behind his back, and our peasant smokes his pipe and broods. So it was with our weeders. They were now singing wildly in the field, sitting at the ends of their hoes, their eyes glazed from staring down the road, hoping the food would finally arrive. At midday, I finally appeared from behind a small hill, carrying the half-warm food, barely coming, barely going, hearing them humming away with such appetite. Then they all rushed at me like dragons, and they would have swallowed me whole had there not been a younger woman among them to hold them back. "Hey now, stop it, will you? Why are you pounding the boy?" cried the young woman. "It's his father you're angry with, not him." Then the weeders, no longer taking their anger out on me, fell silent and began to eat. I escaped with my dignity intact, picked up my bag with the bowls, and headed back toward the village. I swung by the linden tree again, climbed into it, pressed my ear to the hollow, and heard something fluttering inside. I carefully lifted the stone, reached in, and pulled out the hoopoe, weak from all its struggling. As for the eggs, when I tried to take them, they were nothing but mush. Afterward I went home, tied the hoopoe by the leg with a string, and hid it from Mother for a couple of days in the attic among the cracked barrels. And I was always sneaking up there, one excuse or another, until the household began to wonder what I kept searching for. But the very next day, here came Aunt Mariuca, Uncle Andre's wife, storming into our house with her jaw set up to the sky and down to the ground, starting a quarrel with Mother because of me. Have you ever heard such a thing, sister-in-law? Ion stole the hoopoe, the very bird that has been waking us at dawn to get to work for so many years. She was terribly upset, almost on the verge of tears, and now I can see she had every right to be, for the hoopoe was the village's clock. But Mother, poor soul, knew nothing about it. What are you saying, sister-in-law? If I ever found out he caught that bird just to torment it, I'd beat him half to death. Good thing you told me. Leave him to me. I'll unwind him properly. Don't doubt it, Smiranda, Aunt Mariuca continued. Nothing escapes that scamp of yours, and someone who saw him told me he took it. I swear on my neck it's true. I was hiding in the pantry, and when I heard that, I rushed into the attic, grabbed the hoopoe from its place, slipped out under the eaves, and went straight to the livestock fair to sell it, for it happened to be market day. Once there, I strutted among the people, holding the hoopoe proudly, for I too was a little son of a trader. An old fool, walking a calf by a rope, called out, "Is that little hen of yours for sale, boy?" "For sale, old man." "And how much do you want for it?" "As much as you think it's worth." "Bring it here. Let the old man have a look." No sooner had I handed it to him than the sly rascal loosened the string from its leg and tossed the bird into the air. "Look at that! I dropped it," he said. The hoopoe flew onto a merchant's stall, rested, then took off toward Humulest, leaving me standing there with tears rolling down my cheeks. Then I grabbed the old man's coat. "What do you think you're doing, old man? Playing games with my goods? If you weren't going to buy it, why did you let it go? You won't get away from me even with that calf. This isn't a joke." People gathered around us, curious as at a comedy. After all, it was market day. "Well now, you're quite fierce for such a small fellow," said the old man, laughing. "What makes you so brave, nephew? Don't tell me you expect me to trade my calf for an Armenian cuckoo? It seems your back is itching, boy. Shall I scratch it? I can even make you an axe that'll have you crying, 'Mercy, uncle,' when it slips from my hand." "Leave the boy alone, old man," said a man from Humulesti. "He's the son of Stefana Petre, one of our respectable villagers. You'll bring trouble on yourself." He. "Bless him then," said the old man. "But don't think I don't know Stefana Petre. I just saw him earlier walking through the fair with his measuring stick, buying cloth as usual. He must be around here, maybe in a shop, having a drink. Good that I know whose boy you are. Just wait. I'll take you to your father and see if he sent you to the fair to sell hoopoes and shame the marketplace." At the mention of father, my tongue dried up. Slowly, I slipped among the crowd, then bolted for Humulest, glancing back to make sure the old man wasn't following me. I only wanted to escape him, truthfully. As the saying goes, let him go. I'd let him, but he won't let me. Just so had it happened to me, and I was glad to escape with so little. If only I could manage things at home with Mother and Aunt Mariuka. My heart pounded like a rabbit's from fear and the long run. When I finally reached home, I found that Mother and Father had gone to the fair. My brothers told me, worried, that Aunt Mariuka had stirred up half the village over the hoopoe. She said we had stolen it and had driven Mother to great distress. You know Aunt Mariuka. She never leaves a man in peace, unlike Aunt Angelitsa, Uncle Chiriak's wife, a sensible woman. And just as my brothers were telling me all this, we suddenly heard the hoopoe singing again in the linden tree. "Hoop-oo hoop, hoop-oo hoop, hoop-oo hoop." My sister Katrina said, amazed, "Listen, brother. Dear Lord, how some people wrongly accuse others." "Yes, indeed, sister," I said aloud, but in my heart I thought, if only you knew how much hardship that poor bird suffered because of me, and how much I suffered because of it, you'd pity us both. But Zahe left us talking and ran off to the fair after Mother, eager to bring her the good news about the hoopoe. And the next day, Tuesday, the eve of the fast of St. Peter, Mother baked a strong batch of corn cakes and folded pies, roasted young chickens over the fire, then rolled them in butter. Near midday she invited Aunt Mariuka, Uncle Andre's wife, and said warmly, "Oh, sister-in-law, how people manage to quarrel over nothing, listening to malicious tongues. Come, dear, let us eat what God has given us, drink a glass of wine for the health of our household, and say, 'Let the bad be washed away, let the good remain. Let strife disappear from among us, and weeds from our fields.' For if you let every little thing trouble your heart, truly you would have to flee to the hills." "That's right, dear sister," said Aunt Mariuka, shrugging with confusion as she sat at the table. "Do you see now? Never again rely on people's talk." Then, We all began to eat, and while others ate calmly, I for one filled my mouth for the whole day ahead. As soon as I finished, I politely said goodbye and ran off to the river. And when I leapt boldly from a high bank into the deep pool, face first by mistake, sparks flashed before my eyes from the pain. I thought my belly had burst. After I dragged myself out and lay on the bank holding my chest, the boys gathered tightly around me, buried me in sand, and chanted a mock funeral as they knew how. It took nearly an hour before I fully came to my senses. Then I began to bathe peacefully until sunset, planning to go home when the cows returned, and telling Mother that the cowherd had let our cows out at noon and I alone had taken them to pasture, which was why I came home so late. And Mother, good Christian soul, believing they were all full of milk, praised me for my hard work and gave me food. And I, eating like a wolf, acted humble, laughing to myself at the cleverness of the lies I had crafted, lies so smooth I nearly believed them myself. That is how a man can fool himself many times when he does not know how to judge rightly. But I say again, only the one who suffers learns. One day, near St. Elijah's feast, Mother had, as always, a mountain of work on her head, some rolls of cloth to remove from the loom, others to unravel and weave anew, a stack of cut coats reaching to the rafters waiting to be sewn, combed wool in the bench with no one to hold it, the spinning wheel sitting idle in the middle of the house, and not a fiber spun for the yard. And, as the saying goes, don't sit idle, or luck will sit idle on you. There were spools to wind, a nursing baby in the tub, and 5 or 6 other little ones waiting for her to feed them. Work was plenty. Confusion was not, and all of it needed doing quickly, for the great fair of Folticeni was approaching fast, and that fair was no small thing. So Mother woke me earlier than usual and said with her whole heart, "Nică, my dear boy, your father has gone to cut the oats before they shed their grains, and I can't see straight for all the work I have. Leave your wandering and stay by my side. Help me wind the spools and rock the baby. And when I go to the Falticeni fair, I'll buy you a little hat with a ribbon and a fine buckle, you know, the kind you like." "All right, Mother," I said, though only I knew what I truly meant. Truth is, I could outdo even the older girls at sewing and finishing coats, and especially at the spinning wheel. And because of this, spiteful Mariuca Savukului, who, truth be told, I did not dislike at all, often teased me, shaking her fists and calling me Ion the Spinner, after a gypsy from Banatori. Yet even so she was dear to me, and we spun wool together under the mulberry tree, each making a pile of flax sticks as high as a mound. Mother would kiss me when I brought them home in the evening. This is how boys and girls visited one another to work together and chase away boredom, what village folk call a scherzatuare, a spinning gathering done mostly at night, each working on their own task. And as my spinning wheel hummed, my heart hummed louder with affection for Mariuca. God is my witness. I remember one night, at a corn-husking bee, I pulled a mouse out of Mariuca's blouse before it frightened the poor girl into illness. And in summer, on feast days, who wandered through the fields, hills, meadows, and lovely groves with the girls, gathering willow buds for dyes, wild oregano for flower bundles, sweet-scented herbs to tuck into clothes? Who but me? As the song says, "Make me, Lord, a linden leaf, and toss me among the women." Where there were 3 girls, I was the 4th. But when it came to rocking babies, something in me rebelled, perhaps because I was the oldest sibling, and that burden fell on me. Still, what could I do when Mother asked? Yet that day, the sky was so clear, the weather so warm and beautiful, that it made you want to sunbathe like a hen dusting herself. Seeing such a day, I slipped away to the pond, ill-intentioned toward Mother, though she was my own mother and worn with trouble. I speak the truth, for God sees all. After a while, Mother, thinking I was somewhere in the orchard, went out calling, nearly losing her breath. Ion, 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 and Ion. No answer. When she heard nothing, she dropped everything and hurried toward the pond, knowing that's where I always went. And what did she see? There I was, sprawled naked on the sand, like a little boar, and standing up on my feet, holding hot sun-baked stones to my ears, with silver glints in them, hopping on one foot and then the other, tilting my head right and left, saying the words, Orash, little coal boy, drive the water from my ears, and I'll give you old coins, I'll wash your buckets, and I'll beat your drums. Then I threw the stones, one by one, into the deep pool where I bathed, one for God and one for the devil, giving each his fair share. After that, I tossed a few more to lock the devil at the bottom of the pool, leaving him bubbling there. Then, splash! I dove in head first to catch the devil by the leg, for that was our custom at bathing ever since Adam Badam, as we said. After that, I dove 3 times in a row, for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and once more for Amen. Then I pulled myself slowly onto a slope at the edge of the pond, like a big perch, and secretly watched as the water played around the pretty feet of the girls washing cloth upstream. There was nothing lovelier, I swear. Mother watched all this. Poor soul, with her arms tucked under her sides, just as troubled people do, from behind a mound of sand close to me. But I didn't see her. I was too busy. Altogether, half an hour must have passed while she stood there, and 3 or 4 hours since I had run from home. And by then, the sun should have begun to press on my heart, as the saying goes, for it was well past noon. But I, swept up in happiness, had forgotten I was alive. At last, Mother, stubborn as she was, lost patience. Quietly, tiptoeing behind me where I stood watching the girls, she gathered up all my clothes from the bank and left me naked in the water, saying with deep anger, You'll come home, you little vagabond, once hunger gnaws at you, and then we'll have another talk. And she walked away. Well now, Ion, what was I to do? The girls washing cloth, who saw everything, nudged one another and giggled so loudly that the gravel rang. I wanted to sink into the earth from shame, and very nearly drowned from the anger inside me, and from the great love I'd felt earlier. Now I wanted to wring their necks. But as the saying goes, can you stop the wind, the water, or people's tongues? So I let them laugh until their mouths reached their ears. Then, watching for the moment when they bent down to rinse the cloth, I shot out of the pond and ran. I ran so fast across the gravel that the stones flew high behind me. And I ran, without looking back, until I reached a narrow lane on the way home. But I didn't take the road, ashamed I might meet someone. Instead, I leapt into Kostash's garden and crept through the tall corn, then into another lane, then into Trasnia's garden, and again through corn. But just as I was about to slip out of the garden, Trasnia's dogs sensed me and came for me, ready to tear me apart. What to do? I had heard that if you don't want dogs to bite you, the moment they charge, drop to the ground and let them bark as much as they please without moving. They bark, and after a while they grow tired and leave. And that's exactly how I escaped Trasnia's dogs that day. Thank heaven that Trasnia himself, that brute, didn't catch me. He had hated me ever since he caught me stealing his fine apples and pears, and he would have beaten me senseless. And that was the last thing I needed, already being in so much trouble. After the dogs left me alone, I jumped into a crossroads, then over into our own garden, and felt as if I were in God's own embrace. I walked quietly through the corn until I reached our yard, peeked through the fence, and saw Mother rushing from place to place with her chores. I pitied her deeply, and pitied my soaked, aching stomach even more. As the saying goes, I pity you, but for myself, my heart breaks from pity. Unable to endure the hunger any longer, I whispered through the fence, "Mother, here I am." Then I leapt into the yard and stood before her, as naked as I was, grabbed her hand and kissed it, sobbing, "Mother, beat me, kill me, hang me, do whatever you wish. Only give me something to eat, for I'm dying of hunger." As the saying goes, nakedness wanders around, but hunger walks straight in. Mother, being kind, looked at me tenderly and sighed, "Well, it serves you right, you good-for-nothing scamp, to wander the roads like this and leave me without help exactly when I needed you. Come eat, but know this, you've sickened my heart. Only if you behave well from now on will I be again what I was for you, though I don't know, truly." Seeing that I had fallen into Mother's bad grace, I swore I would never do such a thing again. I stayed close to her, obeyed her in everything, for a gentle word brings great reward. I cleaned and swept the house like a grown girl, and she had no worry when she had to leave. One day I saw her kiss me and say gently, "God bless you, Ionica, my dear son. May he give you all his gifts if you keep behaving as you have lately." Then I began to cry at once, from joy, and no joy was ever sweeter. I felt more shame in my heart then than ever before. Had Mother beaten me with every fence stake and driven me from home like a stranger, I would not have felt so humbled as when she spoke to me kindly. And don't think I didn't keep my promise for a good while, for I was, in my own way, patient and steady with my word. Not that I boast, for boasting is empty, but I never asked for food in my sleep. When I woke, I didn't wait for others to serve me, and when there was work to do, I conveniently disappeared. And I had other qualities too. If someone spoke to me harshly, they got nowhere. If they spoke kindly, even less. And if they left me to myself, I managed to make such a fine mess that not even Saint Nastasia, the healer of poisons, could unravel it with all her skill. As the saying goes, a fool throws a stone into a pond, and 10 wise men can't pull it out. In the end, why so many words for nothing? I was, in this world, just a lump of clay with eyes, a bit of living earth from Humulesht, who wasn't handsome before 20, wasn't smart before 30, and wasn't wealthy before 40. And as for being this poor, as I am this year, and last year, and as long as I can remember, never have I been poorer than now.